Hello, friend. This is Legal Design Thinking in Real Life, a live series brought to you by Lawyers Design School, where we help lawyers and legal teams to adopt the skills and mindset of legal design. I'm your host, Hannele Korhonen, and I'm the founder of Lawyers Design School. We have a very exciting topic today, as we're going to talk about the brand new Legal Design Journal with Michael Doherty. Legal Design Journal is actually the first journal dedicated to legal design, and in many ways, I think that this is a great landmark for legal design. We'll have our own journal in the academic world, and it means that we exist. Legal design actually exists. So I'm thrilled to have Michael here to share all the things about the journal. Hi, Michael. How are you?
Hi, Hannele. I'm very well, very well. I'm very pleased to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
And the classic question, where are you joining us from today?
So I'm joining you from my office on the campus of Lancaster University, which is in the northwest of the United Kingdom. It's a very beautiful place to work. So if I look to my right, I can just about see the Irish Sea. So it's a lovely green campus, and it's just by the coast.
Oh, sounds lovely. Even though we were comparing weathers, that the winter weather is not that ideal there, but
Yeah, the weather
anyway.
comes in from the Atlantic, so just about that way.
Yeah. And those of you who are watching this live, please join the conversation in the chat, and we can then say hi to you, and also we can talk about the questions that you may have. But let's start with Michael, you and your background. What can you tell us about you yourself?
Well, I'm just kind of a standard academic, really. I've been in legal education in UK universities all of my working life. I remember in Helsinki last September, I said it was 30 years since my first full-time appointment. I've been thinking recently, and it's this autumn will be 35 years since I taught my first university class in law. So I did a research degree in international law. I took up a post at a university just about 20 miles south of here. So in my career, I've taught constitutional law, human rights, environmental law. I've researched and published on human rights and European environmental and wildlife law. I've taken up a lot of posts in academic leadership on teaching and learning. So I've been a program leader. I've been a teaching and learning director at my law schools, and a lot of my focus has been around legal education. So I'm a former chair of the Association of Law Teachers here in the UK, done work on skills development, and then fell into this area of the visualization, legal norms in education and legal design, which I'm guessing we'll talk about soon. 5 years ago, I moved here to Lancaster, where I was appointed to a full chair, full professor, and I'm currently the associate head of the law school with a particular lead on student experience issues. So that's actually legal design is only like a small part of my job, really. It's a big part of my life, and design thinking permeates pretty much everything I do. But you know, if I can have a day a week of being a legal designer, then that's a good week.
Yeah, and I was happy to hear that you are actually teaching the first course in legal design, or part of the course this semester.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm really looking forward to it. So having been a self-defined legal designer for some time now, so in about 2 weeks' time, I start teaching my first classes on legal design. It's a new module we have here at Lancaster on legal tech and innovation. It's being led by a colleague of mine who's a former legal tech lawyer at a Magic Circle law firm. So I'm just adding a bit of design flavor to that legal tech module.
Oh, that's wonderful news! Wonderful news. But let's talk about the journal. What is it, and what's your role in it?
Well, it's really an outcome of me becoming a legal designer, which I think for a lot of us kind of happened by accident. As I said, again, by accident, I became interested in the visualization of legal norms. I did a project on um, a geographical map of interesting legal places, because one didn't exist anywhere in the world. And I came to, and it was a really good project, and it won some teaching awards. And I came to write it up and discovered some of the existing pioneers in this field of visualization. But then more importantly, discovered there's this whole methodology and concept of design thinking and service design as applied to law. That was this kind of hinterland to that, this context for that. So it was initially through reading something by Helena Hapio that I fell into this field. I call it falling down the rabbit hole in kind of Alice in Wonderland fashion. And then discovered the work of Margaret Hagan and Stefania Pissarra and Dan Jackson, and then attended the first legal design event, and heard Astrid Kohlmeier, Mira Klamola, people like that. So it was kind of a series of kind of happy accidents, really, that led me to this. There was a legal design workshop at the Zurich conference in Groningen in 2018 that I think really sort of changed my life, or certainly my career. And I had this sort of tiny window of opportunity in between my teaching commitments. So I got permission from the head of school. I managed to fly in, spend about 13 hours in Groningen, present my paper and come out. But I was in the room there with people like Helena and Margaret Hagan, and I presented a paper on legal design as an academic discipline, which I think led to my proposal for the Legal Design Summit to be accepted, which meant that I met more and more people. And eventually I realized that I'd built enough of a network to think about starting a journal. And the real trigger, well, I suppose there were two triggers. So one, when I was looking at disciplinarity, what it means for something to be an academic discipline, one of the main elements or pillars of that is that you have an infrastructure. And the infrastructure can manifest itself in lots of different ways. So it could be a research center, or a course, or private education providers, or a series of conferences or workshops, and a lot of those have developed. But you also need a place to publish your work, which we haven't really had yet. The second element is that when I've been doing some of my research, it's just been a completely wild chase through all kinds of different sources. So trying to find the existing literature on legal design takes you through myriad of different sources in different places. And almost everything that's been written about legal design so far is not for a legal design audience. It is therefore published in generalist journals or for a new audience. And that means it has generally certain features. It is self-justificatory. So the first quarter or third of most things that you read about from legal design try to explain that legal design is really a thing, that it really does exist. And it's also evangelical. And I kind of get that, because really we've been in the first genuine decade of legal design. I think probably 2013 is probably the year one or the year zero of us as a genuine movement. So it's understandable that in that first decade, we've all been evangelical. It's all been sort of bells and whistles, and legal design's great, and legal design can solve all your problems. And there's not been that place for us to have kind of a critical conversation with each other. So I thought that there was scope to create that space. So I wrote an article, just published it on Medium, saying, is it time for a legal design journal? I think about 2019. And then 2 years later, I thought I should probably do something about it. So it's been totally a team effort. It's been, the journal's been put together by a working group of 27, 28 people. it's been a really good way of working, and it's been a very designerly way of approaching this through a process of co-creation. Essentially, I just emailed 25 people who were on my list at the time. I either knew them or knew of them, and I thought these are the best people in the world right now in the field of legal design. About 20 of them got back and said yes. The other 5 says, best of luck with the project, but I just can't do it now. We've acquired about another 6 or 7 people over the following 2 years. So they were very much a sort of dream team. They included academics, practitioners, although of course, as we know, there isn't really a divide between those two things. Most of the people whose main focus is practice or consultancy in legal design also do education activities. Most of the academics are also involved in very practical, hands-on, real-world projects as well. But the group of people came from North and South America, Europe, and from Asia, from Australasia, sorry. And it's just been a very flexible and a very collaborative endeavor. And I'll just say a final thing about this. People have contributed to the extent that they can. Some people said at the start, I'm really busy, but I'll be part of the group. Lots of people have contributed in really, really valuable ways with the time and expertise. And it's invidious to name individuals, but I will do now, that without the work of Dan Jackson and Astrid Kohlmeier, we wouldn't be at the stage now. We wouldn't be at the stage where we've launched the journal and made our first call for papers. They were an incredible group of people to work with. By definition, these people are crazy busy. You know, they're incredibly busy building an entirely new field of practice, an entirely new discipline, and the entrepreneurial energy to build a new business, to build a new research center, just takes up so much time and energy. I've been really grateful that they've also devoted some time and energy to this. And there are also people who are full of very firm beliefs as to what legal design is and what legal design should be, and therefore what a journal should be. But we've managed to navigate the last 2 years without any major fallouts, and by collectively kind of reaching decisions on things about the structure, purpose, the mission of the journal.
I must say it's been such a unique process. I don't know if this is the way the journals are typically designed.
No, no.
But I can imagine that it's not.
No.
And the fact that, like you said, that the people who are incredibly busy, but there's something, I don't know if it's the thing that this is so new and we feel so strongly about legal design and the importance and the potential of legal design, that people just find the time to try to help in any way they can.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, having put the working group together and having these, many of the greatest legal designers in the world, it just made sense to approach this as a design project. And it would, in a lot of ways, it just would have been easier to approach this in the way in which almost every other academic journal in the world has been put together, which is you get a small group of people, about 3 or 4 people, you get a proposal together, you send it to a publisher, and the publisher says, yes, we will publish your journal. And in a lot of ways, that would have been easier. But that wouldn't have allowed us to create something that met the values of the legal design movement. Things like we wanted to create something that was human-centered and was therefore useful and usable by people, something that was inclusive. Really, that meant that it had to be open. So the journal had to be accessible by people around the world. There had to be no real barriers to that, which meant it had to be free, which is very problematic for a publisher. Not a lot of people will know this, but there are lots and lots of open access journals out there which are free for people to read, but they normally charge the contributors. So they will charge the academics, they will charge the academics institutions a publication fee to publish within that journal, and which I think is awful as a business practice, a social phenomenon, a way of organizing research, and it certainly wasn't something that we could encompass for this journal. So so we approached it in a very, very different way, I think, than any other journal has been developed in the world so far. And one thing about working in the group was that we always say in legal design we want to be innovative, and it's not just an end in itself, but there is this danger, this temptation that you go to the default position on all things like how do you organize the journal, how do you publish it, how do you recruit people to run it, how do you deal with submissions. And as someone who's been in an academic environment, say, all of my working life, it's quite easy for me to default to those positions. But being in this group with all these other people, these innovative people, these iconoclasts, they really push me to kind of think differently about this. So we think we've come up with kind of ways of organizing the journal, ways of dealing with these things which are different, but they're not different for the sake of it. They're different because they allow us to further the mission of the legal design movement.
Oh yeah, there was a question in the comments. How does the journal incorporate legal design? It seems like it should not feel like a normal legal journal. But then the comment says that he answered my question. But I think it also, because the format, we had to rethink the format of the journal as well, right?
Yeah. So I think we've made reference to it as an academic journal, and a part of it is. But we wanted it to be something that served the whole of the legal design movement in all its sort of wonderful facets and diversity from around the world. So, as I say, the working group was made up of a mixture of people who were academics, in-house lawyers, private legal design educators, legal design consultants, and so forth. So we wanted to create something that would work for that range of people. So the structure of the journal kind of flows from that. So we do have an article section, which aims to be a rigorous, sophisticated place for publishing really high quality academic and scholarly work, though it's not going to be limited to people from those backgrounds. And also a studio section, which is going to be more of a kind of a practical showcase for groundbreaking, interesting practical work that's happening within the field and the practice of legal design.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the very exciting parts of the journal, that it has all these different, because it wouldn't really feel complete if it was only the academic work that is being then featured in the journal.
Absolutely, and it's one of the things about being in this field of legal design that I really value, and I just really like it. There aren't these false distinctions or false hierarchies, and in particular, there isn't a big distinction between academia and practice. And I've worked in law schools that have had law clinics that provide free legal advice to our communities, and it's a mission that I really, really believe in. But because I'm not a qualified lawyer within the English jurisdiction, and I've never been able to participate in those clinic activities because I don't have the training. or the qualification or the insurance to provide so that direct legal advice. But being in this field of legal design kind of opens up the possibility to work in much more fluid teams, to work on practical projects, to work on projects as an academic that have an impact outside of the walls of the campus.
Yeah, for sure. We need both. We need all of it. What can you tell us about the process of designing the journal? You talked about the kind of the principles, the human centricity and innovation, and really thinking outside the box. But what principles or methods were used?
Yes. So to approach it as a design project, we ended up, I think, largely following what you call it the double diamond from the UK Design Council, or the Stanford model of design thinking. But we started off with user research and empathy, that we wanted to understand the needs and desires of potential readers of the journal. So we undertook user research. So we created a questionnaire survey, and we sent it out through our networks and through social media as widely as possible. We asked things like, what should the name of the journal be? What do you hope to read in it? What features should the journal have? What would make you more likely to submit your work to the journal? How can the journal have a positive impact on the legal design movement? We had 140 responses, really from all around the world, from every continent. So at the early stages, that really helped us. We also did a small number of semi-structured interviews. I think in total we did about 8. But they were really good for taking a deeper dive into what people wanted from the journal. And we're also able to pick out sort of parts of the legal design world, both in terms of geography and in terms of expertise, that we didn't have as part of the working group, which led us, to, one example that came from that was there was a response that all the materials on legal design are, almost all of them are in English. And clearly, there's more and more work being published in French. There's work being published in Spanish. There's great centres of activity in South America and in Portuguese. But it led us to think about the dominance of the English language. So our publishing policies are that if we receive work in any language that we can effectively review the quality of, if we have people who can read that and tell us whether it's good quality, then we will publish it. So we don't have a kind of a limited number of 1 or 2 languages in which we will publish our work.
The language question is so important, that it's so interesting, because I've been working in Finnish a lot, but I see and hear a kind of increasing ask for Finnish. The material is in Finnish too, so it's not just speaking in Finnish, but really providing materials in Finnish. There's of course that people want to understand these concepts in their own language.
Absolutely. Good. So that was really just the first phase.
The user research phase. Yeah.
And then we did ideation. As I say, we kind of opened our minds as to what a journal might be. We tried to free ourselves from the normative standards of existing journals, and so I was really usefully prodded and pushed by other members of the working group in relation to that. We prototyped, so we sketched out what some of our policies might be, what some of our structures might be. We wireframed our websites to see what they might look like. And of course, we apply. So we launched the journal formally at the Legal Design Summit in Helsinki last September. We continued to work on the behind-the-scenes stuff and the websites. We launched the websites in mid-December. was accompanied by our call for papers went out then. And we launched our social media accounts then as well. And obviously the final phase in any design process is to review and to iterate. So of course we've built that in. We are going to change our personnel over a reasonable time frame. Certainly I won't be the editor-in-chief of the Legal Design Journal for forever, or even for a long period of time. And we built in a process for an annual review. And I think I can say this. So we're just in the process of the final bit of the decision-making process about having an advisory board. So an advisory board will be able to kind of help us kind of take a step back from the day-to-day operation of the journal, give us access to voices from around the world, to tell us whether we're doing a good job and whether things could be improved or developed. So that's kind of a design process right from user research and empathy through to ideation, prototyping, application and review. So that's how it's been a design project.
That's so interesting. How was it? Were there any? Surely there were challenges. What were they? And any lessons learned?
So I'm really positive about the entire process, and it has been genuinely a joy, but there have been challenges. And say there would have been shortcuts that we could have taken, but they would have resulted in a journal that didn't meet our needs or our values. So the fact that we've been a volunteer group has brought with it some challenges. We've probably had a kind of a longer build-in time because we've had to fit it in to the margins of our working lives. The fact that we've been a collective, and quite a big collective, means I think that we've ended up with better decisions, but it's a longer process with a big collective that's scattered all the way around the world to reach those decisions. The fact that we want to serve the entire legal design movement has meant that there are different needs for different parts of that movement. So we had to think very carefully about the structure of the journal. So for an early career academic starting out in wanting to publish in legal design now, they will have very particular needs from the journal. They will want it to be high quality and high reputation. They want it to be appear on the indices. They want it to be on Google Scholar and on Westlaw and on Lexis and on all those great indices. They want their work to be seen and cited as widely as possible. So we need to design the part of the journal to meet those needs. But for a lot of practitioners, they will have different needs. They'll want to be able to dip into the journal and find accessible resources, examples, use cases that can inspire them. For people from that background who publish in the journal, they may need to protect their work in a different way from an academic. Now, for an academic, our mission is the work's got to get out there, and it's got to be seen. And the more that it's reused and cited, the better. But we all know people from the legal design movement who've created intellectual property that has been reused without permission. So we have to give contributors the security and the knowledge that they can have a level of protection for the remixing and reuse of the material that they publish with us. So we have a kind of a default setting of a Collective Commons license, which is really broad. But if people want to have a license with a high level of protection, then we're quite comfortable with that. Yes, those really were the main challenges. And then of course there's the if we went with a publisher, the publisher would do a lot of the structural work for us and put it out there, but then they would charge university libraries hundreds and hundreds of pounds, dollars. For people who weren't in universities, to access those articles, they'd be looking at a fee of, we've all seen some of the prices, $40, $50, $80 to access a single article. So that was just unacceptable for us, but it means that we need to raise some money from somewhere, because we're not getting it from subscriptions, we're not getting it from contributors. So we've been okay so far. We've had some great investment from new law lab in Boston, thanks to Dan Jackson. We've had proposals and agreements as part of the team that we can crowdfund. So we're willing to put our hands in our own pockets and put in a little bit of money. We're really fortunate in having Alex Gavis, who's formerly general counsel at a major American financial company, who's come on board as a business development manager. So Alex has really got the right skill set and the right mindset to help us raise money in various ways that allow us to be free, provide a service for the community, be sustainable, but also retain complete independence over what we publish and how we publish it. So those have been challenges, and that's the way we've been trying to address them so far.
But I really love how all these solutions to these challenges is really in line with the ethos of the journal, to make it accessible and to really open it up, open the legal design world up to the rest of the world, so that it's not just like this closed circle where you have to pay yourself, pay to see it.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's a question in the chat asking, what article subjects or topics are on your wish list for submission?
That's a question that's never really occurred to me throughout this entire process of helping put the journal together. So it's a good question. You know, on a call for papers in relation to articles. So there's, I perhaps should just say a word about the team of people.
Yes,
who are
please.
now involved in the journal. So again, we've kept a collective structure. So we've got an article section that I've talked about, a studio section, and we've also got a news section. And of course we have social media. So most of us get our news from social media, but we're hoping that the news section can be a more curated collection of news and information and features. So each of those three sections has got an editorial collective, and there are 5 people who will run those sections and make the individual decisions. And as editor-in-chief, I just kind of have a bit of an overview of that. So the team, the articles editorial collective, put together the call for papers for that section, and they provided a list of the sorts of things that we'd be very happy to receive submissions on. And it's just a very, very long list. It's a very, very broad list. So it includes, you know, all sorts of things: legal design and access to justice, legal design and human rights, legal design and business practices, legal design and law firm operations, legal design and economic perspectives. It's basically anything that potentially falls within the field of legal design. We're very happy to receive, and if it's a good piece of work, we'll be very proud to publish it. So I really don't have a wish list. I've got my own interests within the field of legal design, so I'm very interested in critical perspectives on legal design, on legal design as an academic and a cultural phenomenon, and how it fits in to the legal world and how it relates to the mainstream design world. And as someone who's been a constitutional lawyer for most of his career, I'm interested in the way we think about ideas like the rule of law and the rights of individuals under constitutions from a legal design perspective. So if anyone's working in that field, then please do get in touch. But anything within the field of legal design that's good quality, we're very happy to receive it.
Yeah, the call for papers is now open, so
Yes.
people can really submit. But would you then say, because you said that currently when we have not had this legal design focused journal, that we always have to start each article of by explaining what is legal design and justifying it, so we don't have to do that when we are publishing in the legal design journal?
No, no. It, if we receive a draft article and the first 6 paragraphs are this is what legal design is, then um, I think the editors and the reviewers would just go, you can just draw a line through that, unless the purpose of your article is to try to redefine uh, legal design, or try to argue that the definitions of legal design are too restrictive or too generous, of course. Yeah. But I think the key point is that we hope it's not just legal designers who read this journal, but the whole ethos, the whole idea behind it is it's a place where you don't have to explain and justify what legal design is, and you can, but when we write, often we have a person or a group of people in mind. So if I'm writing just a straight academic journal article, then I have people in mind. If I'm writing for a more general publication, I've got a different audience in mind. If I'm writing something for my students' consumption, I have a different tone and a different approach to that. So for this journal, you can write as though all the legal designers who you know and all the legal designers who you hope to be, you can write with them in mind.
That actually sounds wonderful, because it just felt so intimidating. I'm dreaming about my own PhD currently, and kind of practiced writing these academic articles, and it's really intimidating. But when you can actually think about other legal designers that you are writing the article to, it helps. It really helps.
Good.
What would actually be your advice to someone who is interested in doing research around legal design?
Um, I suppose in some respects we are kind of preaching to people um, who've already fallen into the legal design world in some way. I think about, because all of us are neophytes in this field. All of us are relatively new, and in some respects, it probably feels like I've been, I'm one of the older guard in relation to legal design. But in reality, it's only been about 5 or 6 years, and there've been times when I've really had to sort of pinch myself that from reading that first thing from Elena Hapio that I read no more than about 6 years ago, through to discovering the work of the real pioneers in our field, people like Helena and Stefania and Margaret and Dan, to then getting to meet them and getting to work with them and publish with them, to then get into the stage where I'm stood in front of 500 people from 50, 60 countries around the world, representing a project where really some of the best legal designers in the world have worked on, and launching the first legal design journal. It's been a really short period of time. I almost had to sort of pinch myself, really. So all of us are new in relative terms, I'd say. And one impact it's had on my work is that almost everything that I wrote and published up to 2018 was single authored. So I wrote an entire textbook, 240,000 words. I regularly wrote articles, and they were always just me, single author. Almost everything I've published since 2018, including the latest versions of my textbook, are joint authored. So my first tip would be to collaborate. It's a field in which we really encourage people to work together. And you will produce better work and more critical work, and you'll produce it hopefully a bit faster if you work as part of a team. A second piece of advice is, this is a tip I give because I do a lot of work on the scholarship of legal education. So I work with a lot of people who've been legal practitioners who've come and taken up roles, teaching roles in universities, and all of a sudden have to think about publishing things, and it's difficult and intimidating. And my main piece of advice to them is approach everything as a project, because the danger of not doing that is that you just do the work, whatever the work is. So for us, it would be the teaching work, or writing a new module, or coming up with different ways of assessing my students, different ways of supporting my students. And if you just do the work, that's great. But you then find yourself in a position where you haven't set it up so that you can write about it. So I said to everyone at the start of their career, see everything you do as a project, because that forces you to get out a pen and paper or open a document and plan it, which is great. But you will also plan your goals at that stage. What do I want to do in this project? What outcomes do I want? And therefore, what methods am I going to use? And some particular advice in relation to methods: get advice in relation to methods as to how you undertake the project, because you may find yourself at the end of the project having great ideas, great outcomes, great data, and not being able to use them in a formal academic place because you haven't gone through the right process in relation to collecting data, storing it, getting consent, etc. But as part of this kind of project plan, so you look at your goals, you look at your intended outcomes, you look at your methods, so that hopefully at the end of it, you've not just done some good work, you've done some good work that you can then write up, you can share with the world, you can get credit for it, you can have an impact beyond the circle of people who you are working with. And the third and final piece of advice is a reading recommendation, and it's read Stick Dorn, This is Service Design Doing. Someone gave me that tip in 2018, and it changed me for someone who was interested in thinking about design and doing design work within legal education, to someone who could actually do design projects. So again, it's one of the things that changed my practice and has changed my life. So it's a toolkit of service design methods. The person who advised me said you can open it at any page and pick a method and use it within your practice. Being an academic, I opened it at page 1 and read through right to the end and made lots of notes. But it really did empower me to do something more than simply think about legal design. So those are the tips.
Such a great advice, and yes, I do agree. Stick Dorn's book is a true gem. It's like once you start reading it, you can't help yourself but try out those methods.
Absolutely, and to me, after having read that, it just made me kind of re-examine kind of everything I do. So I'm director of teaching and learning, so I'm in charge of student experience, and I just realised, we have this rhetoric of student-centered learning in not just in UK higher education, it's in the EU statements and policy that higher education should be student-centered, and that's been the case for 2 decades at least. And it just made me realise how absent students are from all of our decision-making processes, or there's no real effort to try to understand the reality of their lives before we make decisions for their benefit. So reading Stick Dorn gave me some of the methods and tools that I could use to do something about that.
Perfect. There's a question in the comments. What was the book recommendation? Can you repeat that?
So there are four authors. The lead author is Marcus Stickdorn.
Yeah.
The book is called This is Service Design Doing. It's published by O'Reilly, but if you just Google it, they've got a really, really good website that actually gives you kind of a free, fairly comprehensive taste of the practical service design methods that are covered in that book.
Yeah.
The key things to search for are Stickdorn, This is Service Design Doing.
Yeah. Such a great book. Hey, before we wrap up, where can people find more information about the journal? And is it possible to get involved in the journal if someone is interested?
Okay, yeah. So we have a website, so you can find us. It is Legal Design Journal. If you just search for Legal Design Journal, you should be able to find our website, which has our mission, our personnel, our structure, and our call for papers. We're also on LinkedIn, Legal Design Journal, and on Instagram. If you want to get involved, probably the easiest thing if you want to get involved is to email me. And probably the easiest way of doing that, if you just search for my name, Lancaster University, it will take you to my staff page that's got my email address on, and you can just email me. So we have kind of a full complement of editorial teams at the moment, but there are a number of ways people can still get involved. Probably the easiest way for us to involve people at this stage is by admitting them to our College of Peers. So the College of Peers will be people who've expressed an interest in the journal. We're going to ask them to indicate their areas of expertise or their interests, so that when we get submissions, we know who to ask to review that work. And I think involvement in the College of Peers will be a really good stepping stone. As I say, we're going to be flexible and iterative, and we're going to be very, very open to change, particularly in this first two or 3 year period. And it's people who've got involved in the journal, in particular through that, who will probably be in the best position to step up and take more involved roles as part of the editorial collectives, or helping social media, or helping the development of the website when we come to looking at changing personnel, which will probably be in 2 or 3 years' time.
Yeah. And the best part, when is the first journal published?
Okay.
When is it coming out?
So
Do you have a date?
There are still about 2.5 months open in our first call for submissions. We've not had any submissions yet, but I wasn't expecting any. But what we have had, we've started getting some really concrete inquiries of people who are working on projects and want our advice about how to put it together so that they can submit it to us. If all goes well and we get a good batch of material to work with, then we're looking at June for the first issue being published. Our initial goal is to publish 2 issues per year, but because we're in charge of everything, because we don't have a publisher, because we're a free, open online journal, we can be flexible about that. And if there's lots of material that's submitted to us, then we can publish much more frequently. But the goal is 2 formal issues per year with lots of news stories in between.
So exciting and so important. I think that this is part of the building blocks of really making the legal design as a discipline, but as a real thing. We don't have to justify it anymore. That actually exists.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited about it. It's been it's been a big team effort. It will continue to be a big team effort, and hopefully one that engages with all parts of our legal design universe.
For sure. Thank you, Michael, for taking the time to do this session today and sharing your thoughts and the journey with the journal.
It's been a real pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.